Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This One's Wife. The vicious campaign against Meghan must end. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You'll be aware that This One's Wife once again demonstrated her complete absence of self-awareness with regard to her behaviour when she was asked by Emma Grede in her recent podcast appearance if there was something that she would want to rewrite for things to be done differently. And basically, she explained that she wanted people to stop lying about her, that the truth of who she is should be put out there. This, of course, did not go unnoticed by many people who rightly observed that the truth is already out there about her. It's just that the truth is not one that This One's Wife will entertain. As I have explained to you on many occasions, This One's Wife is incapable of recognizing that she is the problem. Her narcissism simply does not let her. To many people, this seems extraordinary. They cannot comprehend how she cannot see that she tells lies, revises history, bullies people, makes things up, is haughty, dismissive, and generally a nasty individual. They are surprised that she cannot see that she plays the victim, that she makes unsubstantiated claims, that she exaggerates. For instance, a smoking heater became a fire in South Africa. That because she didn't get her own way in relation to getting titles for the children, because they couldn't have titles, the established protocol was such that at that time, because Queen Elizabeth was still on the throne, Archie and Lilibet couldn't have titles, so she then interpreted that as racist behaviour when it wasn't. Time and time again, This One's Wife has behaved in a way that many people can see is unpleasant, reprehensible and nasty behaviour, but This One's Wife is entirely blind to it. She either doesn't see the behaviour, or where she does, it's justified, because it's your fault and never hers. She is always the victim. As a consequence of this victim mentality, she has caused certain individuals who either lack critical thinking or have something to gain by supporting her to take up the mantle of her cause. This has resulted in her having certain lieutenants. And I pointed out just recently that one had crawled out from under his rock, and it may well have been the case that he'd been put in funds once again by This One's Wife for the purposes of propaganda on her behalf. That theory is gaining traction because here he is again. Appearing with an opinion piece in Newsweek, Christopher Boozy, described as a tech entrepreneur, which is taking the principle to the most elastic, puts forward a case to suggest that This One's Wife is on the receiving end of a vicious campaign. This is what he writes. When This One's Wife posted a light-hearted video of herself dancing in a hospital room while 9 months pregnant, she probably thought she was sharing a relatable moment that other mothers would appreciate. Pausing there, of course she did, because her narcissism told her, this is fun and relatable. Do it, but it'll allow you to assert control and draw fuel. Remember, This One's Wife doesn't think in terms of control and fuel and character traits and residual benefits because she is an unaware narcissist. Her narcissism tells her, do this, share this, it's fun, it's relatable, but the real reason you're doing this is to get control and fuel. Boozy continues, instead, within hours, online trolls, immediately smearing individuals, and conspiracy theorists, again smearing individuals, weaponized it as proof she was never pregnant at all. This nightmare is what This One's Wife's life has become. Every joyful, he's as bad as her for using joy, every joyful moment gets twisted into ammunition by people who've made destroying her their full-time job. That, again, demonstrates the mindset of this particular lieutenant to suggest that people want to destroy her. There may be some people who do, but for the most part, people want her to vanish into obscurity. People don't wish any ill upon her, they would just wish that she would stop lying, that she would stop appearing, that she would stop trying to be something that she's not. They're not interested in destroying her. But once again, this lieutenant advances the victim mentality that the paranoia of this one's wife generates. That she thinks, there are people out there who want to destroy me. It is their full-time job. And thus, she complains about that, and therefore that complaint is taken up by a lieutenant such as Christopher Boozy, who puts it out across the media. He continues by stating, and we need to talk about what the sustained cruelty has done to a woman whose only crime was falling in love with a prince. Once again, this washes over the repeated offences that this one's wife has engaged in. By trotting out the narrative, why are people cruel to her? The only thing that she's done wrong is fall in love with a prince. No. This, again, is the victim mentality of this one's wife. You could hear her whining, couldn't you? I don't understand why people hate me so much. I don't understand why I'm subjected to all of this cruelty. After all that I've ever done is just fall in love with a prince. This completely omits the litany of lies and transgressions and awful behaviour, which I don't need to go through again. You're fully familiar with all of the examples. But to suggest that the only thing that she's done wrong was fall in love with the prince is laughable, because there is a mountain of evidence that demonstrates the changing stories, the smearing, the pity plays, the victimhood, the nastiness, the bullying, and so on and so forth. The moon bump conspiracy, Boozy writes, which claims this one's wife faked both pregnancies with prosthetic bellies, represents a special kind of cruelty. Here's a woman who bravely shared her miscarriage story to help other women feel less alone in their grief. No, she didn't. She shared that because she's a narcissist and she wanted sympathy because it's fuel. She opened up about one of the most painful experiences a person can endure. And how do these conspiracy theorists respond? By claiming her subsequent pregnancies were elaborate hoaxes. Imagine being 9 months pregnant, your body aching, preparing to bring life into the world, and thousands of strangers are dissecting your every photo to prove your baby isn't real. Once again, it's all making it about this one's wife. Imagine being a young girl and a grown woman is bullying you in relation to the wearing of tights. Imagine working for somebody, but your employer regularly bullies you, reducing you to tears, even if you are a grown man. Imagine that you are an old monarch that is experiencing ill health, and you watch as your granddaughter-in-law tells lies about your family while your husband is lying in hospital. Imagine that you are an old monarch approaching death, and around that time your granddaughter-in-law undertakes a documentary where she mocks you with her courtesy with a smug narcissistic grin on her face. You see, Boozy, for every instance of let's imagine how awful it is for this one's wife, one can come up with another 20 instances of her behaviour whereby she didn't consider the feelings or impact of her behaviour on anybody else. He continues by explaining, this one's wife revealed she was the most trolled person in the entire world in 2019, pity play, while pregnant with Archie. She's spoken about how the harassment drove her to thoughts of suicide, pity play, revision of history. A pregnant woman was pushed to the edge of despair by people who found entertainment in her anguish. The recent dance video illuminates this persecution perfectly. Here's this one's wife trying to induce labour, sharing a funny, intimate moment millions of mothers can relate to. Within hours, it became Exhibit A in the conspiracy theorist case against her. They zoomed in on her moving belly, claiming it proved she wore a prosthetic. They analysed her IV line, suddenly becoming medical experts. They took a moment of joy and transformed it into a weapon. This isn't normal criticism. It's psychological torture designed to break someone's spirit. Really? It's criticism. No more, no less. But once again, the victimhood of this one's wife would describe it as psychological torture designed to break someone's spirit. And the worst part, these aren't random acts of cruelty. They're coordinated, monetized, and amplified by people who profit from this one's wife's pain. YouTube channels devoted entirely to proving this one's wife's pregnancies were fake, generating millions of dollars. British tabloids have built entire business models around tearing this one's wife apart, knowing that her name on a negative headline guarantees clicks and sales. Social media influencers discover that attacking this one's wife drives more engagement than any other content they produce. Hatred just hasn't become a business model, it's become an entire industry, with this one's wife suffering as its most profitable product. Or perhaps we could put it another way. If this one's wife didn't behave the way that she did, there'd be nothing to comment about. Her behaviour came first. Furthermore, note once again, with this one's wife's suffering as its most profitable product. The vast majority of people that comment about her don't do so to cause suffering on her part. They do it because they want to expose her lies and her hypocrisy. That's the product, and there's lots of people interested in it. The online vitriol has translated into terrifying real-world threats. Britain's former counter-terrorism chief disclosed that this one's wife faced disgusting and very real threats from far-right extremists during her time in the UK. Security teams investigated numerous credible plots against her life. People have been prosecuted for threatening to kill her. While navigating motherhood as a new parent, this one's wife simultaneously confronted vicious online conspiracy theories and lived under the shadow of genuine terrorist threats. Well, anybody that has engaged in criminal behaviour towards her then is rightly persecuted. And one isn't denying that there is the existence of individuals that go too far. But notice how Boozy seeks to conflate the genuine, appropriate criticism of her with disgusting and very real threats from far-right extremists. It's disingenuous, and Boozy, we see straight through what you're doing. He continues, this one's wife once said the abuse was almost unsurvivable. Think about that word, almost. She survived, but barely. She got through it with therapy, with Harry's support, with sheer determination. But she shouldn't have had to survive anything. She should have been able to enjoy her pregnancies like any other woman. Yes, but what about you, Boozy? What about you when you joined in with questioning where Catherine, Princess of Wales, was? What about your stance, whereby you have been discredited as a consequence of suggestions that you were involved in a crypto scam? You're the last person that should be issuing moral diktats towards people, given your conduct and behaviour, the fact that your own daughter has described you as abusive. It's unsurprising, however, that the sanctimonious Boozy would engage in this, because if there's money being put his way, then he will say what's necessary. He's been rather quiet for a while, focusing on a political situation rather than this one's wife, but he's popped up again. And yet, for all of these weasel words, he forgets the vitriol that members of the Sussex squad have directed towards other members of the royal family and people that comment about them. Why doesn't he mention this? Because it doesn't fit with his narratives. But he goes on to state, but the attacks don't stop with this one's wife. Anyone who dares to publicly defend her becomes a target to themselves. The message is clear, support this one's wife and we'll come for you too. Although I would point out that one could say that of the Sugars. Criticise this one's wife and we'll come for you too, as numerous YouTubers can ascribe. The goal isn't just to hurt this one's wife, it's to isolate her completely. Again, this is incorrect. There might be a small number of individuals who would like to hurt this one's wife, but the vast majority of commentators don't wish any ill on her. What they want to do is ensure that people are aware of the fact that she tells lies, that she revises history, that she's a bully, that she makes things up. The point is, if you make yourself a public figure, you're going to be held to a degree of accountability. And if you keep putting yourself in the public eye, which this one wife does, and we know why, because of her narcissism, you're going to have to take some flack and criticism. Not everybody is going to like you. And if you keep changing your stories and ostracizing members of your family and your in-laws, and you tell lies about people, you're going to face criticism. This is not hatred. It isn't wanting to hurt this one's wife. It wasn't wanting to isolate her. It is having her to be held to account for her behaviour. He continues, the social media platforms that host this hate bear responsibility. The tabloids that report on these conspiracies for clicks bear responsibility. But most of all, we as a society bear responsibility for allowing this cruelty to continue. This one's wife is a real person with real feelings who carried and delivered 2 real children. She's a mother who can't share her joy without it being weaponised against her. The moon bump conspiracy isn't just false, It's an act of sustained cruelty against someone who dared to join the royal family while being black, American, and unwilling to suffer in silence. Somewhere, tonight, this one's wife might be looking at her children, the very children strangers claim don't exist, and wondering if she'll be ever free to share their milestones without unleashing a torrent of hate. I can tell you now, this one's wife won't be sat thinking that. These conspiracy theories have participated in the theft of a mother's joy. If they can't find the conscience to stop this now, then we need to face the ugly truth about who we've become as a society. Because when a pregnant woman is tormented to the point of suicidal thoughts, when her pain becomes someone's profit and entertainment, a fundamental piece of our humanity has been lost, and that loss diminishes us all. Well, it's quite hilarious to have an individual such as Christopher Boozy moralising in this way. It is ridiculous for the reasons that I have set out. And for him to take this stance when he's been silent for quite a long time is demonstrative, of course, that something has caused him to come crawling out from under his rock, and to my mind, it's most likely money. It's another attempt to make people feel sorry for this one's wife, and it's issued by one of her lieutenants. This is done as a transparent attempt to cause people to feel sorry for her. Unfortunately, it won't work. There is a mountain of evidence demonstrating that she has behaved in a reprehensible manner, and all this does is demonstrate that she is blind to her behaviour, that she will not take accountability, and that she organises the wheeling out of the Lieutenant Christopher Boozy, who doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to moral authority, to try and deliver a lesson in morals to people. Let's have a quick look at some of the comments below the line. Tessa777 writes, "This one's wife is a public figure and people have opinions about her. If she doesn't like the attention, she can stay out of the limelight. This bias piece is a great exaggeration regarding someone who's been given every advantage imaginable, all the while trying to force-feed an inauthentic and false image of herself on the public. I do not have sympathy for her or this author. I do believe she birthed her children, but I think her video was unbecoming and desperate, to say the least." Biscuits and Jam states, "My impression of this one's wife is that she wants to present a certain image and does not like any criticism that contradicts that image. Since she seems to enjoy being in the public eye, that is not a realistic expectation." Mr. Boozy's article presents yet another victim narrative for this one's wife. While I do not believe the surrogacy stories, I do understand some of the doubts people express. The release of the twerking video was inadvisable, and it should have stayed private. While she may have intended it as sharing a joyous moment, it instead comes across as rehearsed and performative. From viewing the video, I can completely understand why people question its authenticity. If this one's wife wants to shut down discussion about her children's origins, perhaps she should make a clear and concise statement instead of relying on surrogates, such as Mr. Boozy, or attempting to address the issue obliquely via odd videos. Another comment, "How dare Newsweek publish this author?" LM2011, "Oh God, this person needs to zip up. We will believe or say what we want, just like Boozy did about HRH Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Meghan is a third-rate person who failed at everything she attempted. If not for Harry, she would be on OnlyFans to make a buck." Ellen67, "There is protocol in place for children in line of succession to the British throne. Their births cannot be conducted in secret. They must be accompanied by witness and signed statements. Those births were legitimate. The doctors who delivered the children cannot refuse to sign as witnesses to the births. To do so means those births will be in question." Kath Walsh Consulting, "A little balance. This one's wife has repeatedly done to the royal family and Catherine what Boozy accuses others of doing to Markle. She's pursued a non-stop litany of lies against the royal family for the past 5 years for monetary gain. She lied under oath in the High Court in London and only escaped being charged with perjury because, irony of ironies, she's a member of the royal family. Race, she identified as Caucasian for her entire career. She has spent a fortune erasing every trace of her black physical features. She was welcomed by the royal family and British people with great warmth in a £36 million wedding. Wasn't allowed her voice in the royal family. She was given senior patronages of significant charities and arts organisations and supported them at high-profile public events. The Queen gave her and Harry the most senior positions in charge of the Commonwealth. Of the night she claimed to be suicidal, there are photographs and videos some say strongly contradict her statement. Unsurvivable? Why didn't she tell her GP, a psychologist, her obgyn? Legitimate doubts around her pregnancies arise from the endless contradictions and implausible stories, the due date and actual date of the birth, the secrecy around the births, lack of documented evidence, and dozens of bizarre photographs and videos of her bump and its movements and constant change in size and shape. Since Megxit, her entire public persona has been built on her victim complex. She's loathed on 5 continents. The simple truth about this one's wife is people don't like her. Balanced and reasonable observations to Boozy's piece. What do you think, valuable viewers? The behaviour of a lieutenant who has come crawling out from under his rock, presumably as a consequence of monetary gain, with another attempt by this one's wife to nullify the threat to control by the continued criticism of her behaviour by playing the victim once again. The typical narcissist. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.